So I'm going to start with a story I actually really love. There's a architect, Alistair Parvin, and he talks about when a client of theirs comes to them with a problem. So the problem was that they had a lot of congestion in their hallways. There were very narrow corridors in the school. This led to bullying, fights, and students being late to the next class. So they'd requested bids to be able to redesign and expand the corridors, and they contacted Alistair's firm to bid on the job. And they said, we're resigned to this costing us around £20 million, but we just need to do it. So Alistair's firm, instead of jumping into solution mode, they actually stepped back and thought about the problem. And sure enough, when the bell would ring, the students would pour out. You'd end up with this congestion, bullying and fighting. And they said, let's run an experiment. So they went to the hardware store, they bought some individual bells and they put them in each classroom. And they said to the teachers, at the end of the lesson, you set the bell off. And of course, no teacher is going to do that at exactly the same time as they wrap up what they're saying. So this led to students going out at slightly staggered intervals, and then the congestion problem was solved. So you solved a £20 million problem for £500. And I think that's what we all want to achieve. We want to find the simplest path to achieve the outcomes that matter. But what leads to us not doing that? What are the things against us? And I think there's a lot of pressure to deliver. You end up with delivering to these deadlines and milestones, delivering lots of stories and points if you're in the agile world. And I even see that happening nowadays with these very activity-based OKRs. All of this becomes this way of increasing the need to deliver more. And if more was a good idea, when I look at this TV remote control, this sums up the problem we have, because if more was good, then more buttons on your remote control would equal more value. Now, the next picture comes from a guy who went to visit his grandmother. And when he was looking at his, going to watch television with her, she kept getting up and changing the channel. And he said to her, well, why don't you use the remote control? And she said, there's too many buttons. I can't find the ones I need. So he fixed the problem. So if you look at that, that to me is just brilliant. It really sums up what we need to do, is to figure out what our customers really need and give them what they need to get their job done. And this, I think, is our organizations. We have so much complexity. We have so many issues and so much going on that we actually need to find a simpler way to get to the outcomes.
Sorry, Gabrielle, apologies.
Yes.
The screen's not moving to show that amazing picture.
Oh, is it not? Okay, no, I'm going to do a screen share. It's funny, I just saw Joe just disappear and I saw him and I thought, is he asking someone to get him something, or is he trying to signal me? And I had that moment. Hey, Joe. Okay, next time I'll pay attention to Joe. Hang on, wrong one. What are you seeing now?
Nothing.
Okay. All right, let's see. Stop share. Gosh, just when you think you really have it nailed, you really don't. Okay, I'm going to start again. Let me go and share this way. How's that working? Do you see anything?
No.
Seriously? Okay, what we're going to do is adapt super fast. So what I'm going to do, organizers, if you don't mind, is I am going to give you the link to my slide share, and you can go in and give this to me. So who can I give this to?
You can probably give it to me, Gabriella.
Or Mick. Look, do it to Mick.
There you go, Mick. You try that.
Let me see.
We're super patient, Gabriella. So don't even worry. We've got this.
Unlike me, I'm super not patient.
And I can, okay, present that. And then I will share my screen. So, yes, I'll take it from you. Okay.
This is
that was the cliffhanger. This was a brilliant cliffhanger. Okay, keep going. I'll just say next.
Okay, so let me see where I am with that. 2, 3. Remote control.
Next one.
Next one. Okay.
There we go. Ah. Okay. Now it all makes sense. So he removed the unessential so the essential can speak. He removed the complexity and made it easier to get the jobs done. Next. And what drives this? Next, Mick.
Oh, sorry, 1 second.
I'll keep saying next.
Yeah.
And so to help with this, we have lots of different frameworks that we bring into our organizations. So we start off with Agile, then you have Kanban, and then you have all the Scrum at Scale, Safe. You know, every day it seems like there's more and more frameworks to deal with. Next.
Yes.
And they do different things well. So for example, design thinking, we're looking at building the right thing. Next. Agile is about building the thing right and build it fast. Next. And with design thinking, we want to do deep discovery. Next. But we risk getting stuck in analysis or seeing it as a one-off upfront activity. Next. And with Agile, we can deliver features very rapidly. Of course, the danger next is that we risk building the wrong thing faster. Next. You're getting really good at this, Meg. So what we really want is balance. Next. We want to discover why, figure out what we want to achieve, how we're going to achieve it, and deliver how we're going to do that. So when the why is clear, the what is understood, then the how is much easier. And this is about Mobius, building the right thing and building it right. And so the steps in Mobius, we want to understand why we're doing it and who we're doing it for. We want to discover what's really going on. This is where we need to get data, and this drives our measurable outcomes. We then go into the options. This is where we generate the potential solutions. We call them options because these are the things that may help us achieve the outcomes, but until we test them out, we won't know. So we refine these down into experiments, things that we can deliver and get feedback fast. Next. And this is how we decide. We decide which are going to have the biggest impact on our outcomes. Next. So we create experiments and deliver to our customers. We then want to measure them and figure out, did we actually achieve the outcomes? Next. And next. And this is what's known as continuous learning loop. So think of this as a race car track. I really like the idea that we've got some cars on the left loop discovery, some on the right. You don't have to start in why. We often do to make sure it's very clear what we're doing, but you'll be going around this loop simultaneously. And the other thing to understand is that while we want to improve the way we build our products and services now, we also want to improve our organizations. So we use it also for process improvement, changing culture and innovation. Next. And so you adapt as you come around. You're always deciding, what do we do on the left loop? Do we discover more? Do we deliver more? Or do we pivot and do something completely different? Next. And it incorporates, Mobius is an aggregator. It connects all of these different frameworks in a way that makes it make sense. We want to be able to bring these together, get the best of all of them and get them working cohesively. So you don't have to choose in your organization. There's many different approaches and they all have value. Next. And you can use this for everything from your organizational strategy, your products, services. We use it for sales, marketing. We use the same pattern, what we call the self-similar pattern, throughout the organization. Next. And you create your own journey. We let people adapt it. So we have what we call structured freedom. You have a basic structure, but we all have different tools and approaches, and we mix these together to create a more cohesive, continuous flow. Next. We're going to be showing with Tao, we'll be using 3 open source maps. Think of this as your dashboard. It's a really easy way to get started where you can capture, think of these as core containers that capture the information in each of these areas. Next. And we use this in very different worlds, from fintech, medtech, culture change. People are using it for life hacking, strategic innovation. You can see down there, we've got Ricardo's restaurant, which Joe Justice knows very well, in Chelsea. And we're about to actually start this week. We're going to be doing some live broadcasts as we reboot a business after the pandemic using Mobius. So for real world applications, super fun. Next. And one of my favorite applications is social impact, social change. These are pictures of hundreds of street sort of social entrepreneurs in places like Pakistan and Yemen who are using this approach to innovate their businesses. So that's enough about me. We'll stop there. And we're going to go across to Tao. So Tao's amazing. She's that dream client, person who comes to you. And I've never seen anyone who wants to become so innovative in a very traditional culture. And she just takes ideas and turns them around overnight. I've seen just incredible progress with Tao. So we're going to jump across to Tao now. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you, Gabrielle. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why we bought Mobius and how we're using it. But before I get to how we got to Mobius, I'm going to talk about some of the things that were in my organization that led me to discover Mobius. And when I came into my role, I've been 18 months into a new role in a new country as head of digital innovation. And what I noticed was there were pockets of agile that existed across the organization. As most companies, we're on a massive transformation journey as well. So tons of transformation going on across the entire organization. We have great consulting firms who are also very costly at the same time, and loads of vendors. And I did discover pockets of Kanban as well, where colleagues thought Agile wasn't working. They then introduced Kanban, and loads of other training that was there to actually just help all of our colleagues and move the organization forward. So that's part of what I discovered when I just arrived there. And in terms of specific to innovation, I also discovered that there was a lack of a common language and approach across the entire organization. And I wanted to create impact. But I wanted to create impact really quickly. So there were a lot of questions I was asking myself while I was beginning to learn and explore the organization. And one of the things was, how do I create a sustainable approach? So something that's evolving and bringing everybody around on a journey. How do I communicate better with my colleagues? And how do my colleagues communicate better with each other? How do we start changing the culture? How do we introduce something that can unite all of us? And I didn't want to just disregard or throw away the existing training that had been done, but I wanted to embrace all of the training that had been done. I wanted to embrace all the frameworks, the tools. We had teams that were doing brainstorming techniques, design thinking. There were tons of methodologies, you name it. I'm sure we've seen it in our organization. But I also found that there was an overload of PowerPoint. I have this term called death by PowerPoint. And even though a lot of our vendors put so much of effort and content into these decks, these slides, I find that they have impact and then people forget about them in the organization. So I wanted something that was more flexible, more engaging. And I had researched a lot about new tools, new trends out there globally. I even looked at business schools. Was there anything new coming through? And Gabrielle had trained me previously as an Agile Scrum Master. And the one thing that resonated about Gabrielle, for those of you who've never had the pleasure of working with Gabrielle or being trained, is she stands out as a global trainer. You get really bad trainers, you get good, and then you get the most exceptional trainers. And for me, Gabrielle was in the exceptional trainer category, mainly because of her experience, the fact that she continuously worked so globally, engaged with different nations, and I felt just so relevant. And so I looked at what Gabrielle was doing, and I saw this concept called Mobius. And I thought, wow, I don't know what it is, but I love it because it's visual. It's not linear. It looks like I can do this on one page. And that's exactly what I wanted to bring into my organization. So I just jumped in there with Gabrielle. We got training with my innovation team. And it really resonated. You know, we have quite a lot of cynics in my organization, and the cynics loved it. I didn't say anything to them, but they got it. And we'll share with you some of the case studies we're using. But what I'm really enjoying is the fact that we're on a journey with Mobius. And with Gabrielle, I can co-create. One of the big things about my role is to be able to co-create with someone, to learn, to create that community, that ecosystem. And I find that Mobius is just so flexible. It's ticking all of those boxes. And very quickly, we're seeing the impact. I'm seeing senior stakeholders who've never really engaged on tools, methodologies, actually using Mobius. So for me, we're definitely hitting home here. So Gabrielle, are you okay if I just share? Yeah,
Go for it, and just, yeah, I'll let you drive. You don't need.
Okay. All right, cool. Bear with me. Hopefully this works, and you should be able to be seeing a mural board.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so there are no secrets here, and I've actually changed all of this, but and it's a little bit tiny, but I just thought, let me do a bit of a case study just so that something that just could hopefully resonate with all of you. So, so on one of our sort of case studies we explored with Gabrielle, this was about customer calls and complaints reduction on a contact center channel, yeah. And we had a cross-functional team. We had everybody there from head of complaints, we had technology, we had marketing, we had insight. And this is very much leaning around those principles of agile. And with this project, this was a very interesting project for me because my colleagues came to me and said, well, we've been around and around, literally in a circle with this project, and it's not shifting anywhere. And we need your help to actually shift it. And I knew that this tool was going to help shift it. So one, I believed in the tool. Let me just let some people in. And we went for it. And in the spirit of innovation, look, I had no idea how this would work with my colleagues, but I just said to Gabrielle, we're going to do this in 3 hours, not realizing I'm freaking Gabrielle out at the same time, but we just went for it. And lo and behold, it was bloody successful. And we actually cracked the fact that this project couldn't shift. And I'm sure a lot of you can resonate in your own organizations where you just need something fresh, something new, but you're not overhauling the whole project. Yeah, you actually just need it to move. You need a catalyst. And this was a catalyst. And as we can see, that this map allowed us to not go back over the same research, but actually just ask a lot of the right questions, like, you know, who are we doing it for? And you can see from all the post-its, this is how we got the teams actually quite engaged in the why. So why we're doing it. And each of our colleagues could actually feel comfortable actually sharing their ideas without feeling threatened. So we expanded a lot on the why and what it means for the different roles in the organization. And then the bit that I always love is the outcomes. And with the outcomes, we kind of got it down to the customer and the organization. And this is the bit that Gabrielle and I actually iterated, and why I love the tool, because it's so flexible. We decided, yeah, we want outcomes for customers, but we also want it for organizations. And as we started putting in more ideas, our colleagues started sharing more. And funnily enough, at the end of this this whole 3-hour session, we actually realized that the actual problem we came in with and that the team were trying to solve was the fact that a key piece of technology didn't exist. And we had probably missed it, including me, until Gabrielle asked the right question that made us all have this aha moment. And I love the aha moments, but also it enabled us to put out a whole lot of options. Okay, and I'm running through this really quickly, and but you can ask some questions later on, and then we could prioritize these and actually go back and action them. And we were assigning names to the actions so that this wasn't actually lost, that this 3 hours was actually impactful. And the beauty of this is we could go back and actually I could show our execs exactly where we are. So in 3 hours, I could say, okay, this is what we've done. We've looked through our why. We've run through who's actually going to be impacted. We've got options, and we've actually got key actions in terms of how to deliver. So for me, this was great, because if I needed to share with a senior exec or anyone on that team for that matter, they can actually bring something quite visual out, and they could continuously show how things are moving. But also, if there were some people who weren't able to join the session, they could always go back and add their input into these. And this is why I just find it extremely flexible and just works for me. Okay.
Quick point on that. Somehow the outcomes, I think, got lost. In case you're looking, going, those don't look like outcomes. I think the outcomes may have disappeared a little bit when we obfuscated some of the more sensitive information, but we'll show you on the next one. And also, Tao, if you remember, that first one, you actually gave me 4 hours.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a fairly not too complicated thing. What happened next was Tao then decided to up the ante, made it 3 hours with something far more complicated. So just setting the scene for Tao's belief in the impossible.
Yes, and we cracked it, and I think that's what's so amazing, because you want that energy, you want and you want your colleagues to embrace something and not think that, oh, someone's new come along and now they're bringing in the next new framework or tool, and this is a new way of working. But no, my colleagues came in with an open mind, and they were receptive to this. And I mean, as I explained before, we were a 200-year-old brand. And with that, colleagues are skeptical. They are nervous of change. But this process is just so engaging. It breaks down all of those barriers naturally and sets everyone up for success. So another project which I also changed a little bit was something a little bit more relevant. So we were seeing change with regulation changing. We've got these new concepts like open banking coming around. We've seen the impact of COVID. And there was another project that I thought, great, let's explore this one. And this time we had, once again, total different group of people. A lot of our colleagues from regulation, from risk, from legal, once again, strategy, we have innovation over there. So as you can imagine, very different profile of people, and also probably not used to something like this, but extremely successful once again, and this rarely worked. So we were looking at how do we set the strategy out? What do we do? How do we create our next competitive advantage in the marketplace? And once again, this time, nothing really was done. We weren't needing to pivot anywhere. We were coming right in from the beginning. And it's very rare that I have those moments of coming in from the beginning. I'm always fixing something. But this time we were lucky to start from literally a blank sheet of paper. However, we couldn't take too long. We needed to accelerate delivery at the same time. There was a lot of interest around this space. And once again, we started with our why. What are we trying to solve? And we got all of our colleagues actually really focused on what exactly do we really want to do. And we brainstormed around, who are we targeting? Who are the different groups? Who are the different segments? And I found a lot of times in organizations, sometimes we can go into segmentation to death. But this is the great thing about this, is it keeps you lifting up and going, okay, don't deep dive, kind of keep it high level, but relevant. And once again, a bit messy, okay, as you can see, but the messiness actually worked great for us, okay? And what it enables is to step away from, at the end of the maps, okay, is to actually then go back and say, okay, now let's start organizing this? Is there a theme coming out of here? And how can we split out the actions and the deliverables around this? And on this one, yeah, I think we had the really great outcomes. So we started looking at some of the great outcomes we wanted to have, like improve the customer experience, for example, and for the organization, like most of us, make loads of money, so increase revenue. But once again, it helps to show stakeholders how in a workshop, in a short space of time, you can actually do what most consulting firms actually take, and I'm not here to run down consulting firms, but sometimes take weeks to do, okay? And I am an ex-consultant, but like Gabrielle as well, I love speed. I'm just want to move and move and move, but not everybody's ready for that kind of pace. But at least it shows for those that wanting to say, well, have you done it correctly? Have you thought through your customers? Have you thought through the customer journey? And where is the business case in all of this? And can we do this? And is it going to make us money? So I found this really, really flexible. So I'm going to stop talking and let Gabrielle jump in as well here to share some more thoughts.
Okay, could you zoom into the next one? Go down to the cleaned up one. So what was really interesting, actually just zoom high level out a bit. Yeah, okay, that's where it's getting a bit clearer. So what I found really interesting is that, and actually go further out so we can see all three maps.
Oh, okay.
What was interesting for me, so, you know, all of us are sort of, I feel like if you're going to be a trainer, you have to be a coach. You have to use this stuff yourself. Otherwise you just get irrelevant. You forget what it's really like. Just show the three maps a little bit closer in on the second one. Yeah. So what was interesting is that even though I'm all about get momentum, get it all laid out, what Tao did was really interesting. She actually forced me to be better. She gave me 3 hours. And imagine you're a person who comes in, you might not know the industry that well. So I basically got sent a PowerPoint or two, and you often get sent a bit of analysis. I'm told, help these guys. She has this bizarre belief that she's like, right, in 3 hours, you need to get all these cross-organizational leaders. We're trying to bring in the idea of Mobius, and you need to help us with this new disruptive neo-banking thing. And we need to get it all ready to go in 3 hours. I'm like, what? Imagine being told that. You're like, what? And so I went, okay, sure. Why not? I just sort of thought, well, let's give it a go. It was funny to me. So we put the 3 maps down, and it was so nice because for me, it gave me that kind of safety net, but flexibility. So what I was doing is everybody speaking at once. So you want to be kind of fast at typing. And I'm just sort of real time trying to put stuff in the kind of right place. And we call that the big, beautiful mess. You just get it down. But what I really wanted to do was to say, I have a thing on the right-hand delivery map, which is very much, you can plug in your sort of Jira's, your Kanban, your Scrum boards, whatever you use, that's fine. We're very tool neutral. But I have a question, what can we do this week to increase the outcome? So what I wanted to get from it was that we get onto delivery. We don't get stuck in discovery, because what you want to be doing is doing your research and getting the benefits out as you go. So that was the aim. We had to get everybody across the organization things to do. And this was kind of cool. We just sort of on the fly, I was like, whoa, how do we organize it? So we organized it into desirability, viability, feasibility. And that really worked because we had people around the sort of viability, doing all the business modeling, getting data. They had stuff, action items, people in the feasibility, you know, while we're doing it, Tao said, oh, you know what we need? And I said, we need a prototype. What can we assemble fast? And don't forget, this is nowhere on their roadmap, right? Actually, one of the Exco guys was like, this looks great, but we kind of got other things funded. And he said, you know, how do we decide what to do? And I said, you should do this for all of them because you want to compare the outcomes, you know, but we need something up and running to see if this is going to work. And Tao went, while we're shortlisting vendors, let's actually see if they can help us build the prototype, which I think is what's happened. And then under desirability, you know, we wanted to test this prototype and also get something of value, because while we went through the research, it became very clear problems for people at the moment with COVID, you need to get finance fast, right? For a bank like Tao's. And people struggle with the amount of paperwork. So the whole point of these sort of open banking platforms is to make it much faster to do these things, remove all that manual intervention and these long queues. So when you do your sort of value stream maps, you can see there's a lot of problems. While you're doing research into what are the different steps, you can see that a lot of documentation. And Tao said, oh, you know what? other banks don't ask for as much. And I said, great. When you're doing your research, figure out what they're doing. We could immediately cut out those documents from your existing flow, get something that improves the outcomes before you build this whole platform. And that's the stuff we could deliver that the next day. We can suddenly make a lot of revenue. And you can see why the outcomes between the customer and the business, you want to keep them married up, because we have a hypothesis. If we make it easier for people to get their finance, less steps, less documents, that will create a lot more revenue, because each day of delay is interest we're not gaining. We can lose customers, right? So immediately we could quantify that out. And I bet with that one documentation change, like just removing some steps, we could quantify that to be millions of pounds a year. Now that's going to build trust for Tao to say, this is a good way, I've made a difference, off we go.
And just to add to that, Gabrielle, so with our prototype, we're actually going live in what would have been under 12 weeks, which is a huge first for my organization. So usually something, and in most organizations, to go from idea to live usually takes like over 6 months, maybe even 9 or 12 months. And now we're doing this in under 12 weeks, which is just phenomenal.
And I think you got the buy-in. What Tao did, which was clever, is she really found the right people to be in the room. Now they're fans, they're part of the journey. You don't hand it over to them afterwards. You've got to get everyone in the room, right? Don't do this as a solo operation. So instead of just cross-functional, really think cross-organizational teams.